This is Bill Gywer and Father Pat.
Okay, Bill, if you could just tell me something of how your father came to know Father Pat and where, and anything that you can think along that line.
Well, Jack, this is quite a long while ago, but in trying to remind myself of some of the things that my father told me, my dad completed a short service commission with the Royal Mounted Police, and then during this time he studied engineering, and he came to Trail, and my recollection of him telling me that he worked for 3 days in the copper smelter and found that this was too onerous and too hot, so he moved to Rossland and was surveying in the War Eagle. This is the time when he met Father Pat, and they became very close friends over the few years that my dad was in this area. There are an awful lot of tales that have been told. I can remember some of the ones that Dad has told me about Father Pat coming back from various camps in the area in his shirt sleeves in the middle of winter, having given his overcoat and suit coat to some miner who was heading out for the Montana border. I can also remember tales that may not be for publication, such as after having held a service in Rossland, Father Pat saying, well, it was time that everybody went down to the bar, and he being reminded that this was a Sunday and the bars were closed, and he would remind the people that he had the keys to all the bars in Rossland at this time. Not that this indicated in any way that anything was out of line. Through the years, after my father left the area, he corresponded with Father Pat. My sister, elder sister, was named after Father Pat, and this was just shortly after Father Pat's death. Hold it. Well, Jack, you asked about Father Pat's watch, and this is rather a complicated arrangement. Actually, Father Pat's watch was sent to Sheriff Robinson, with a note that this was to be forwarded to my father. In the intervening time, Sheriff Robinson died, and through a number of circumstances, his effects were sent to his son at Yale. And my dad and mother were retired there at that time, and one day Robbie Robinson, as we called him, came over with this box with Father Pat's watch and the note to his father, asking him if he could possibly find W.K. Gywer to pass this watch on to him. This was done, and subsequently, of course, my mother turned this over to the Rossland Museum.
Did you tell me at one time that your father actually lived with Father Pat in the same residence or anything?
No, he didn't. No.
Well, did he have any particular relationship with him? He seems to probably know him better than other people did.
Well, I think this may have been due to the fact that before my dad came to this country from England, he was a choir boy, and Father Pat made use of that in Rossland in his services. I can remember my father speaking of these services very slightly, with the thought that I'm sure everybody has of Father Pat, that his whole stress was on what he could do for the people. There's no doubt that he was a deeply religious man, but his first thought seemed to be how he could help the people in the area of Rossland at this time. This was the thought and feeling that I certainly obtained, and I'm sure that this is the way my father looked on Father Pat, because I can't say that he honestly was a very ardent churchgoer after this time.
The letters you gave us, Father Pat, they were directed to your father up on the Kettle Valley line. Was there something your father work on that land?
Yes. Dad worked on one of the original surveys on the Kettle Valley, but prior to that he worked on an original road survey that was all proposed many, many years ago, practically following the Christina Lake Canard Road at the present time. And then, as you know, in later years, when my dad was the district engineer in Penticton, which district at that time went from Nelson to Kelowna. And during this period, in the early 20s, 1919, 1920, the Rossland Cascade Road was built. And even at that time, there was controversy as to whether this road should be built this way or built over the new road location. But I can remember and have a letter from the Deputy Minister, or the Minister of Public Works, stating that there were 3 conditions to the road. One, that it had to start at Cascade. The second was that it had to terminate at Rossland. And the third was that it had to cost the enormous sum of, for that year, $49,000.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you recall any other information regarding your father that might be of interest?
Well, my father and Lorne Campbell were exceptionally good friends throughout the years. I can remember in my case applying for a job for the West Kootenai and being turned down on graduation, but here I am. But probably the earliest recollections that I have are of my dad surveying in the Kootenai Valley somewhere around 1896, and this was just prior to his working in the smelter for a short period. And then in 1900, he took a survey party through the Okanagan from the boundary, and I believe they went as far as Kamloops that time. And this was one of the original surveys made through that country. So that,
well, his employment in Rossland, was it just in the War Eagle?
yes, I believe it was in the War Eagle only. Tales, of course, of which there are no there's no real proof, but I can remember Dad telling me that having come from a farm in Manitoba, where he had moved to from England, he was familiar with horses and plows, and he helped in plowing the first street that was made in Rossland, down the main street. And at this time, the remuneration for such jobs were very, very small, but each of the bars and saloons along the street, of course, wanted the road plowed in as far as their establishment was concerned. And as my father told me, with perhaps some exaggeration, he said the deal was that if they plowed into the saloon, they were allowed to have all the beer that they could drink for lunch that day. This may be typical of that era.
Did he ever tell you about his trip into this country? How did he come? Down the Arrow Lakes, or how did he enter?
No, my recollection is that he came up through the States, having gone down from, he left the mounted police in south of Calgary, and then went south, came across through the States and up through Northport this way at that time.
Well, he'd come up on foot or on wagon road? Or?
All on wagon road and on foot at that time, oh yes.
Did you remember to tell me what years you thought this was?
Yes, I think this, between the period, as nearly as I can recollect, would be between 1895 and 1898, in that range, in this area.
You don't recall any other sayings of Father Pat that you might have heard from him, or any Father Pat antics that you haven't already recalled?
No, I can't actually recall any. I tried to develop something from these 2 letters, but I wasn't able to do very much from them.
The latter part of Bill Gywer's tape was spoiled due to low batteries. We'll have to do that bit over with Bill one of these days.